Well, right now that I moved the mouse, it tells me it's 9 minutes, 39 seconds. But I think that's how long. Oh, okay, recording has started.
Okay, cool. All right. I just got the notification too. All right. So, good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, Cynthia?
I'm doing good. Thank you. So far, so good. Saturday's great. Blessed.
Yes. Well, I want to just everybody that's tuning in and watching this, I want everybody to know that I have the lovely Cynthia here. She's going to give us some more info about who she is and what she does. But as I mentioned before, February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And so I'm here representing the garden to bring awareness, to drop some knowledge, and to also have the lovely Cynthia to share her own experience to hopefully inspire, to motivate, or to encourage other youth out there who may be struggling with similar things, and to know where you can go for help, or if you know a teen who is in a situation and you want to support that teen and giving them the support and resources that they need, we'll go through that as well. So before we dive in, I do want to drop some knowledge. And as far as I think we don't realize, and Cynthia, maybe you could tap in on this too if you feel if it aligns with you, but I feel like we don't realize like how big of a problem it really is. I feel like it's something that gets like brushed under the rug, or just something just unnoticed, or I think sometimes that it might be unreported too, especially if these are teenagers dealing, in these situations. So um, I think notice like recognizing that it is an issue, right? And so teen dating violence is more common than what we think. And according to the CDC.gov website, in 2019, it was reported that about 1 in 2 experience physical dating violence, and about one, I mean, sorry, not 1 in 2, 1 in 12, excuse me, 1 in 12 experience physical dating violence, and about 1 in 12 experience sexual dating violence. And I think it's important also to recognize the differences, right? Like, what is teen dating violence? Abuse, and what does it really look like? Is it just sexual? Is it just physical? Or are there other concepts that come into play also? And when you hear that, Cynthia, 1 in 12, about 1 in 12, and that's in the U.S. high school students experience this type of either physical violence or sexual violence. Like, what do you think about when you hear such a statistics as that?
I mean, honestly, even just that itself, I think it's pretty high. And I honestly think it's more, just
Right,
because
because that
just
was in
yeah,
2019. Yeah.
yeah, and that's just based off the fact of whoever did report,
Hmm.
and there's so many people just staying quiet about it. So, but what I do like now is that there is a lot more awareness where, back then when we were younger, we didn't have any of this. We had health
Right.
class talking about, sex when it comes to drugs,
Mm,
alcohol, partying, but the dating part never really came along. Yes, you had the class where,
right.
you had the baby and,
Mm,
you had to take them home and stuff, but it's still not really talking about, the violence that goes on with, while you're in that relationship.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And then the consequences after that, right? So being in an unhealthy or an abusive or a violent relationship can have short and long-term negative effects. And I think even that is not, you know, being promoting enough awareness on that. Like, okay, we promote awareness on, that it may be something that's happening, but then how do we, promote even more awareness to, like, what are the consequences? Like, what are now these young women who may have been in these relationships, and the consequences that they are faced with now, like depression, anxiety, um engaging in unhealthy behaviors like drugs, alcohol,
Yeah,
antisocial behaviors. Yeah. So it's like,
PTSD, and yeah.
exactly. So it's like, even that part of it is not talked about enough, like recognizing what those consequences are. And even thinking about, like, what can we do to prevent it? Like, how do we do, what can we as a community, as parents, as school educators, anyone, like, what can we do to really help prevent these harmful, long lasting effects on the individuals, but also their families, right? I think about, I have a 17-year-old daughter and a 13-month old. And I think about my girls, like, like imagining if that was them, to what extent would I do to make sure that my daughter is safe, that she has the resources, that she has the support that she needs. And that's just me, and I'm not experiencing that, but you do. Like, what resources and um what preventative measures are we giving families just to even to be able to recognize if this is something that their child may be experiencing. And I feel like that is not talked about enough. I think it is getting a little, the promotion and the awareness is getting a little better, but I really feel like we could be doing more, right? Like, I just feel like, me personally, I know that I could be doing more, and it's trying to figure out, like, what does that look like for me, as an organization and as an individual and as a parent. Like, what can I do, what more can I do to really support? And so I think that leads us to you sharing a little bit, Cynthia, about yourself and what it is that you do in your organization, how you got started, a little bit of your history. So I'm going to give you the floor, and you just, you bless us with whatever you have for us on today. Just tell us a
Okay,
little bit about yourself.
perfect. So I'm excited to be here and share my story. Um, so my name is Cynthia Hidalgo, and I am 34 years old. I have three kids. I have an 18-year-old son, 15-year-old son, and 10-year-old daughter. I'm a certified domestic violence advocate from San Diego, California. Yes, I was a baby with a baby. I was 14 years old when I got with my ex-husband, and 16 years old when I had my first son. I am a survivor of domestic violence after 18 years, which is what led me to what I do now. I want to inspire and motivate many others who are going or have gone through similar situations. I dealt with several types of abuse, which include emotional, mental, financial, physical, and parental alienation. I now love to pass my experience and personal knowledge to the world because you never know who may be listening, and it may just give them that extra push to give them the strength they need to get out and move on. Realize that there really is much more to life than what they're living or lived.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow. You were 14 years old in a relationship. You said your ex-husband. So at some point you all got married,
yes.
had kids. Okay. So going back to when you were 14, did you experience the abuse right away, or was it something that came like later on down the line?
Um, Honestly, like my parents, of course, that's why they didn't want me with him.
Mm.
They saw the red flags right away. But when you're a teenager, you're not listening to your parents. That's the
Right.
last thing you're doing. You're gonna do the total opposite of what they're saying, and you're gonna get
Right.
away with it, right?
Mhm.
So, I, you know, I mean, I started picking it up once I actually moved out with him and had my son.
Okay.
That's when the more of the controlling, isolating part came along.
Okay.
Just because he would mention that I could not, he'd have to pretty much manage who I can talk to and whatnot. So I
Mhm.
could not. I had to say bye to all my friends. I could not. I just had to like pretty much disappear,
Wow.
um, because they were all bad influence for me, including family.
Wow.
Um, and because he knew that I wasn't raised by my biological parents, he'd always use that, you know, on me as
Mm.
well. Where he's like, they don't love you. They're not your real family. Why are you so worried about it? They didn't even want you with me. So why are you so concerned about, going back to, you should just be focused on your immediate family, which is, myself and your son now. Um,
Wow.
so, and at that time I just had, my one son. So, with me just being so young and like, okay, well, where do I go? I don't want to go back home looking like a failure, like I just kind of dealt with it. And I was like, yeah, you're right. Yeah, you're right. And then just kind of course, got worse throughout the years. So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It almost felt. I mean, I can imagine at 16 years old, right, at this point when you
yeah.
moved in.
Mhm.
I can imagine, being that young and being immature, naive, like, it sounds genuine. Like, it sounds like, oh, he loves me, he cares about me, so I can see how it easily it could look like something else coming from a 16-year-old's perspective. Then later on, once you start really maybe seeing more of the signs, like, wait a minute, like, this is not love, or this shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
Um, so how old was he at the time?
17.
Oh, so both of you were teenagers. So it wasn't like he was This
Yeah,
old man trying to groom you. Right. Okay.
yeah, he's
So,
older.
wow. So, okay. So then 16, you kind of leave everything, family, friends, starting a family with him. Were you still going to school?
I did, yeah. Um,
Okay.
that's a good thing. He let me finish school. I was at the, I mean, of course, I was like all over the place, but I ended up graduating from San Isidro High School in
Okay.
2006. And his mom's the one who helped me out with, registering back in school and what, because I was still minor. I couldn't
Right.
register. But yeah, I
Yeah.
finished high school.
And how was, did his family see the signs? Because I know you said like your family saw the red signs. Did
Um,
do you think that his family knew?
I'm gonna say yes and no. Yes, in the sense that for many years it was like, they would tell him like, why are you talking to her like that? Don't. But then of course they would try to not interfere because just because we were living under the same roof, they just kind of wanted to not get involved.
Mhm.
But his mom, of course, did try to get involved so many times, and she's like, no, just, don't talk to her like that, and stop. But it was like, she's with me, and leave us alone. So
Mhm.
and then of course it was also times where she would thank me for being with him.
Wow.
She's like, I don't know how you can stand being with him. I don't understand. I'm just you need a trophy to just because
Right.
I know you're dealing with him, and thank you for being there.
Wow.
She felt like in a way, she would tell me, she goes, I feel like you saved my son,
Wow.
because he was gang related and into drugs and alcohol and when he was younger. So when we got together and had our baby, he started changing those bad habits, but then picked up on other habits,
Wow.
So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Wow.
so yeah, she would thank me all the time for just sticking around and being with him because she
Yeah.
feels like if I would have left him, at that point, he would have just gone back to drugs, alcohol, or
Right.
going back to gangs, and then either he's locked up for life or dead, due
Right.
to.
Wow. For the mom to be like, thank you, like, thank you.
Yeah,
Oh, you got to deal with this, but thank you for dealing with it. Like,
yeah, pretty
thank you.
much. Yeah.
Wow, that's tough. That's tough. And to know, as parents, we know our kids. Are you? Yeah, you say you have three kids, three
Yeah.
all boys.
I know I have my 18-year-old son, 14-year-old, well, 15-year-old. He just turned 15, and then my daughter's 10.
Oh, okay. Lovely, lovely. I have the two girls that I mentioned, and as a parent, we know our kids, right? We know if they are a handful. We know if they're pretty quiet, pretty timid kids. We know if they have behavioral issues. Like as a parent, we just know these things. So for his mother, your mother-in-law at the time, were you guys married at that point?
Not no, we didn't get married till like 2010, so I was like 20 something when we got married.
Oh, okay. So at that time, his mom knows how her son is and kind of like enabled him or made excuses or justified what he did just to have you in his life, like to keep you in his life because you were maybe getting him in order or helping him get his turn his life around and all of that, which is a blessing. But it's also like, but then, like you said, then that he got rid of one behavior and then started taking up other behaviors and other habits. So that's unfortunate.
Yeah.
But I think I guess as a parent too, I guess it gets to a point where maybe we've done all that we can do, right? So it's like, how do I control this man, this young man at the time? How can I control him in his life when she probably didn't even, probably never had control over him. If he was in the gang life and doing all of that, it's probably like I get it from a parent point of view, but like obviously I'm understanding like you have to go through the suffering. You have to go through all what you did. And it was like you would think like was there someone there to stop it or to stop him? And it probably wasn't, right? Probably like who he's a grown man at this time. So why does he have to, feel the need that he has to listen to anybody? So that's man, that's rough. That's tough. Did he have a mom? Did he have a father also? Was father in the picture?
In and out of the picture. I mean, as he was growing up, he was just, yeah, dad was
Okay.
just everywhere.
Okay. All right. Thank you for sharing that. I do appreciate you allowing yourself to be vulnerable and sharing those parts of you. Um I do want to know, what would you say was what is something that maybe you've learned, or how have you maybe grown from that experience?
Well, honestly, I feel like I'm still learning, and I mean, pretty much learning who I am and realizing what it is that really I want, like, and love in this life. These last 2.5 years that I've been back home, I've grown a lot as a woman, being independent without fear and learning to love myself.
Mm,
So it's for me, that's it's a big deal because
yeah.
I still till today, I still doubt myself at times, and I'm like, oh my God, did I make the right move? But yes, I did. It's 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 just having faith and having patience. Patience for sure is the key. Something I've learned a lot because I normally don't have patience.
Yeah. I love that you said like it's still a process for you. Like you're still on this journey of growing and learning from this experience. And I think that's a blessing. I think you might always be still learning and growing from it, you know. You were in this relationship, you said, for 18 years,
Yes,
and then it's been, so how long has it been since
it's been
that?
2.5 years that we haven't seen each other. Yeah, like
Wow. Wow. And what everybody's going to ask, what everybody says, and this is probably hard to answer, and this wasn't something I prepared you with, like, how do you stay in it that long? How do you stay in it that long? And you know what made it easier 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, to leave versus leaving in the
leaving
midst.
before.
Right.
Yeah. So, of course, I at the time I didn't believe in divorce. I wanted to keep my family together, which still today that's pretty much what hurts me a lot, that I don't have my immediate family together. But it was that and so much belittlement, the emotional mental abuse really got to me. So I felt like I couldn't make it on my own. It was always like, how are you going to make it on your own with 3 kids? Nobody's ever going to want you. Nobody's ever going to love you again. I mean, you have 3 kids. Nobody's going to want to support you and your 3 kids. Um, and living out of state made it so much harder because I knew that I'm like, okay, well, I have nobody to go to here. That's part of, the
Mhm.
isolation
Yeah.
where they want to not have you around family and friends.
Right.
And so that's what made it really hard. And of course, my kids seeing everything they saw, and every
Mhm.
time I want to talk to them and tell them, like, hey, you know what? I think I'm ready to leave your dad. I can't deal with this anymore. It was like, but we want the family together. We don't mind the arguments. Like, those were their words. We don't mind the arguments. We just want our family together.
Wow.
Um, and because his threats to them, because in front of me he'd say, like, if your mom and I don't stay together, then you guys are going to be fatherless. You guys will not, you guys will not see me ever again. So I'm
Mm.
sure that that's still till today what their fear is. um
Wow.
just because I don't see my 2 boys. um I honestly think that that's what's keeping them from even talking to me, because anytime they try to defend me, it was
Mhm.
like, are you on her side or are you on my side,
Yeah.
so yeah, they would stay quiet, and they obviously just look at it now like it was my fault that I broke up the family and I'm the one who left them.
Wow.
Um, yeah.
Wait, so your boys are with him?
Yes, they refused to. I haven't talked to them, and I mean the last time we spoke was in March of last year, and it was all negative.
Wow.
Yeah, they don't call me mom, they call me by my name. And honestly, what helped me leave, God put me in that situation. I ended up in jail on the 4th of July of 2020, and
Mm.
we were visiting here in San Diego, and he was getting to me. I lost it, and my oldest son called the police on me. And luckily, I was here at home in San Diego, so I
Wow.
was able to rush to my parents' house, and they hadn't seen me in forever. We would speak here and there through phone,
Yeah.
but again, I'd always just kind of get lost.
Yeah.
And they were so used to just me getting lost, but every time I get lost, they were like, "Is she dead? Is she, like what's going on?" But yeah, I ended up at my parents' house, and yeah, I ended up having to go back, and because it looked like my son was calling me, but it was really the police already there. And I
Mm.
didn't think they were going to take me in, but because of the accusations that they were saying, they went ahead and I had to go to Paradise Valley Hospital in National City.
Mhm.
And they had to make sure I wasn't overdosing because that's what they were saying. That I
Wow.
was going crazy. So but they handcuffed me right then and there. They're like, okay, well, if everything turns out fine, that you don't have, you're not overdosing and you don't have
Yeah.
drugs in your system, we're gonna go ahead and take you in to Las Colinas detention facility. And at that point, I started crying like crazy. I mean, I'm like, oh my God. But I'm like, okay, I can't just cry. I need to get myself out of this mess,
Yeah.
So
Gotta
my
think.
mind, of course, at that time, you're going like 20,000 miles per hour. I mean, I learned
Mm.
to be on survival mode anyways.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I was like, okay, let me see, how am I gonna get myself out? And of course, my parents are like, we're gonna bail you out. I'm like, you are not gonna bail me out. Did I'm like, I got myself in this mess. I'm gonna get myself out. You're not gonna pay a dollar to get.
Wow.
And sure
Wow.
enough, I start writing letters to the booking department, to the psychiatrist there, and I'm like, I need to get out of here. And this should be considered self-defense. I'm not the abuser. The good thing is that I had record from Arizona where he had already put hands on me,
Yeah.
and and yeah, I was able to get myself out within a week. And
Oh my gosh.
yeah,
Wow.
my fear was that they were gonna take my daughter. Luckily,
Yeah.
people tried to get her that same day, but she refused to leave with them. She started crying, and at that time she was like 8 years old. So started crying, and she's like, and so they were like, well, we can't force her in the car to go with you. So he took off with my boys, and that was
Wow.
that. And so when I
It's
got out, I said, I can't go back. I cannot. Like, you know what? Either you're gonna end up doing life because you
mm,
did something stupid, or
yeah.
you're gonna die because he hit you too hard,
Yeah.
or you killed yourself. It's like because I
Right.
did. I was having my suicidal thoughts at that time, where you just feel like that's the end of the world.
Mhm. Mhm.
So
Wow. Wow. I just want to pause here for a moment to tap in with the audience, those that's going to be watching. I haven't heard Cynthia share her story. So I'm hearing it live just like how you all are watching it. So I'm having like all kind of reactions to like what she is sharing. Like I didn't realize you didn't have your boys with you. I didn't realize like it's still so fresh. Like 2.5 years ago, you were in this situation and now you've been able to be out of it. And it only happened that way by the grace of God. Like you got arrested, not him, but you got arrested. And that was like the blessing in disguise for you. That
yes, it was.
that is amazing. That is amazing.
Till
I mean,
today, I still have chills from it. I'm like,
yeah.
man.
Yeah, like literally like my hairs are raising on my arms like
Yeah,
that's like the and this is what we mean by the long-term consequences. Like you don't even have your kids. Your kids blame you, so think about the effect, the power, the manipulation that their father maybe even has on the kids and how they perceive it as this is mom's fault. We wanted you guys to stay together. And in their minds, the only family they knew was you two. They
exactly.
didn't know grandma, they didn't know grandpa, they didn't know aunts and uncles, cousins. They only knew you. So in their minds, it's like I'd rather have this, what I know, even though it's not the best, but I'd rather have this than not have anything at all.
Anything at all.
And that's the scary thing. That's the scary thing. And one of those long term consequences that we talked about. Like now, I can't imagine how you must feel and how trying it may be for you still to not have your boys with you. Um, and you know, yeah, I'm like lost for words. Like I can't even wrap my mind around how do you like how what keeps you going every day? Like what keeps you pushing every
That's
day?
that's everybody's question. Everybody's like, "What in the world?" Like I would be in at Paradise Valley Hospital because I don't have my kids with me.
Right, right.
But I can't lose myself because of my daughter, and that she needs me to the fullest. If it wasn't for her, man, I mean, I don't know what like I don't even want to think about it.
Yeah.
But she keeps me on my toes, that's for sure. I honestly, I started gaining that little bit of strength in Arizona, because of her. she's like, why do you let daddy talk to you like that? What do you mean we can't go hiking? We're all going together, and things like that, where I'm like, you know what? Like she's picking up on these patterns, and
Right.
eventually she's gonna be like, Mom, why'd you stay so long? Mom, and I'm like, you know what? They'll thank me, one day.
Mhm.
They'll thank me one day. So I honestly I stay strong for her, and I'm like, I gotta create an impact and have it last forever. Um,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
for sure.
Is your hope that your boys will come around, or do you feel like you've lost that hope because it's been so long?
I will never lose hope. I will in faith. I keep praying every day. Every night we pray and we're like, we hope to see them soon.
Mhm.
We need God to open up, their eyes. But God knows when, He has his timing.
Absolutely. And his timing is perfect. It may seem, if it's 10 more years from now, like God's timing is perfect. Um, man, and yeah, I feel like if you were in this situation and you didn't have your faith, it'd probably be even more that much harder, right?
Yeah. Hmm.
So I love to hear that you're also a woman of faith also, and I think that just makes that much of a difference. Like that's where your strength comes from, right? That's
Yeah.
where your peace, your comfort, whatever you
But
need, like all of that comes from that, from God giving you the strength, and that's just a blessing. Oh my gosh.
yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. Thank you for sharing that. That's I can't imagine. How old
I
is your daughter? How old is your daughter now?
She's 10. She'll be 11 in May.
Okay. And
And
then
yeah,
so at 8 years old, she was aware of like
oh yeah.
this is
Mhm.
not it. Yeah.
That's not right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
during the pandemic, it just made it that much harder. She's like, "Mom, can I please go to work with you? Because Dad talks bad about you, and they're just there and like agreeing with him, and I don't want to be hearing it."
oh,
And yeah, I would have to drag her with me. Luckily, because of the pandemic, I was able to just hide her in a room, and the doctor's like, "Yes, I need you here. Just bring her."
oh wow. Thank God for whoever you was working for at that time. Thank God
Yeah,
for them. Thank God
yeah,
for them. And it's like not only did you just have one person teaming up against you had three. You had your sons like teaming up against you too with him.
yes,
And that's like I don't know how many times you may have thought, but I birthed you. Like I brought you into this world. How dare
yes,
you?
yes,
How
and
dare
yeah.
you look at me like I'm the enemy? Oh my goodness.
Yeah,
God
and
has
he did it. My oldest son would get in my face and just like scream in my face, like, and then it got to the point that he'd start calling me names like his dad would, like, I mean, I don't really know what I can say on here, but just I'm like, okay, you need to not talk to me like that. And there was a few times that because he got in my face, I called the police, and I'm like,
yeah.
I don't know at this point what to do. They're like, and I mean, at least in Arizona, they're like, as long if you hit him with your hand open, nothing's wrong.
Right. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
good. You're good. I'm like, but still, like, I didn't see myself hitting my son when I
Yeah.
know that I'm like, you know what, God, and believe at that point I was losing faith. I'm not gonna lie. I was losing faith because I'm like, why am I going through this and whatnot? But I'm like, give me the strength you know, to not smack him right now
Right.
because he's in my
Yeah.
face. I'm just like, oh my goodness. And
Wow.
but yeah, it's really hard because they talk to me like he would talk to me.
Yeah. And you said your oldest son is how old now?
He's 18 now.
Okay, so he was 16, probably a big boy, I can maybe imagine too. So it's like, who don't
Yeah.
go head to toe with
He was
it?
already told. No, he called CPS where he's like, yeah, take us please because my mom's just being irresponsible. She goes to work and she just leaves us the food in the fridge for us to warm up. And CPS went and they were like, you're old enough. You're old enough to go turn on the
What?
stove yourself. You're lucky she's leaving you food in the fridge for you to warm up. And if
Right. Be
and if
thankful for
she doesn't want to show up tonight, she doesn't have to show up
that.
tonight. You guys can stay home alone if you guys are, because my other son was like 12, 13. She's like,
Yeah,
you guys are old enough to stay. And of course, I dragged my daughter with me everywhere.
yeah.
So, yeah, she was like, he's like, that's it. You're just on her side. I'm like, oh my goodness.
Oh,
I'm like,
wow.
I'm
So
like my
wait,
baby.
where was dad? Was he
He was in and out like
Oh,
during the day when I was home, he would try not to show up. I mean, at that time we were living at an extended stay. We were just in and out of hotels all the time. Um,
wow. Okay.
yeah, very unstable, very unstable. So yeah, it was. And so yeah, I mean, I was living like in a little studio with them, and there we were, just, dad showing up whenever he wanted. So I knew that this was never going to end. I'm like, even if I look to move out by myself, he's going to just be around all the time because he
Right.
has control. We're isolated. We're here alone. Something happens to the car. Who am I going to call? Him,
Yeah. Hmm.
So, yeah, it made it really hard. I'm like,
Yeah.
thank goodness I ended up in San Diego again.
Man, thank God that the way that it worked out, that's how it was supposed to, that's how it was intended to work out, man.
Yeah.
Um, how is there anything you would have done differently?
Um, It definitely would have to be that I left the abusive relationship a lot sooner, not be afraid to seek help from family. And I think if there was more awareness back then about this topic, of course, when I was younger, it would have opened my eyes and I would have reacted sooner than later, because now it even emotionally, mentally affected my children.
Right, absolutely. Yeah, I think, had we been maybe having this conversation a few years ago, and this was maybe not you, but someone in your place, and you just happen to watch it, maybe that would have been like, oh, okay, I can't. If she did it, I know I can do it. I
Yeah.
know whatever I got to do to leave, because it wasn't that your family, you know, didn't didn't own you. You just were isolated from them. So I feel like, yeah, if you would have reached out, I feel like definitely they would have been there for you to
Oh, and they
help
always
to
told me
rescue
that
you.
we're always going to be here when you're ready. But they knew that I was 1 foot in, 1 foot out, 1 foot.
Right.
That it was back in 2015 when I started like rebelling and started opening up social media here and
Mm-hmm.
there. I'd install the app when I was going to go to work, uninstall the app when I was going to go back home, just because
Oh,
he'd like go through my phone and stuff.
wow.
So yeah, it was just like, that was my way of being able to get in contact with them and somehow then find out that I'm still here, I'm alive, and
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Like just so y'all know, yeah, I'm still alive and well, still in this shithole. Excuse my language.
yeah, pretty much. But I know I gotta get out. I just don't know how. They're
Yeah.
thinking anybody could just tell you like, well, just get up and go. But no, it's not that
It's
easy.
not
Like,
that easy.
and
It's
you
not
just
that
always
easy.
hope that they change. And
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly. I'm glad you mentioned that. Yeah. It's not as easy as we think to just get up and go. It's not, and like you said, you're in there hoping like, okay, maybe today this is gonna be the day that he's gonna change. This is gonna be the day he's not. And then it was maybe those days when he did come home and wasn't abusive, right? And then it's like,
there was
oh, okay,
beautiful moments, of course.
right.
That's what keeps you in this cycle because
Exactly.
it's like he comes home with roses and I'm sorry and let's
Mhm.
go out for dinner and I'm sorry I made you cry. I'm sorry I called you this. I'm sorry. It's like over and
That
over.
honeymoon phase
We're
again.
good
That
for like a
honeymoon.
week or two, and then all of a sudden, there we go back to square one.
Right, right, right. Yeah, but it's like when it's good, when we're in that honeymoon phase, it's good. Okay, like, oh, he's
Yeah,
he's
like
a
why can't you always be like this? Gee.
right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Man, how now we talked about like these negative impacts or these negative consequences and some that you're still faced with today, right? Because you don't have your boys with you. What would you say, if any way, how has this impacted your life in a positive way?
Well, my life experiences have positively impacted me because I naturally like to flip the switch.
Mm,
Always trying to find a solution to issues and turning negatives into positives.
mm.
If I wouldn't have lived what I lived, I wouldn't be here sharing my story to leave a positive impact in other people's lives.
Absolutely, absolutely. So now, share a little bit more on what it is that you do. So what is it that you do to now that you're trying to impact other people's lives? Tell us a little bit more about your organization and how that started.
So when I started Instagram just in 2020 when I was going through my phase of having like my suicidal thoughts and anxiety, depression.
Mhm.
And it helped me a lot because people would reach out and say, "Hey, thank you for posting that. It's an eye opener and whatnot." So I that started like just filling my heart and my soul. So I'm like, you know what? I this is for me, there's more for me in this life. So I I just I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna keep doing it. If this is what's making me feel good, I'm just gonna keep doing it. And
Yeah.
once I got here to San Diego, for sharing what I share, that's how people started reaching out to me. That's when like Embracing My Markings podcast reached out to me,
Oh,
and
wow.
she asked me to share my story because I
Yeah.
think domestic violence had been a topic that they had been wanting to talk about.
Oh, wow.
And I was able to share my story there. And I mean, they were like, wow, Cynthia, you have so many listeners. And, a year later, they're trying to ask, like, what happened to Cynthia? How far did she come and
Yeah.
whatnot? So, and that same girl, my friend Maribel, who's now my friend, of course, very close friend, she's like, Cynthia, I believe in you. Like, there's so much more to you than,
Yeah.
just, keeping your Instagram. And
Yeah.
and so she's like a content creator and started, she's like, I'm gonna open up your website, like I'm gonna just do it.
Wow.
And I was
Wow.
like, are you serious? And she's like, I believe in you, I believe that you can go big with this. And she's like, because you're very impactful, you're very inspiring, you're very motivating. She goes, you motivate me every day to. I'm like, how is she up at 4 a.m? She's like, I can't even roll over from bed. So yeah, and she's just like, you know what, I'm gonna just do this for you. So when we finally launched on, and it was crazy because we launched on the 4th of July of last year. I
Mhm.
was like, and I'm like, 4th of July, I went to jail.
Oh, the year
2020.
before that. Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So 4th of July 2022, we went ahead and launched the website, and I started, and that's when I had already kind of said that I wanted to start talking to teens. And luckily, I also, through one of my cousin's birthday parties, I met one of her friends who was a teacher. And she kind of, we were speaking there for dinner and whatnot, and I was able to tell her a little bit of what I do, and she's like, oh my goodness, I want you to come talk to my students. And then of course, like I'm like, but I just started. Like I don't even have slides made or anything. I'm like, wait, give me a second. So she goes,
Wow.
no, it's okay. I'll give you time. So yes, she reached out and she was like, Cynthia, I need you to come talk to my kids. Like it could come to my classroom. And I just did this about 2 weeks ago. And it was so like, again, it fills my heart to
Wow.
just know that these kids are like, interested in what I'm talking about and opening up when I didn't think,
Yeah.
um, and giving them that knowledge and that, like, what they need to know to get out of,
Hmm.
situations because I told them, I'm like, it's not just a relationship. It could be with your friend. It could be with your
Right.
parent at home. It could be
Right.
that you're living at home because you see your parents,
Exactly.
or even let's say you have a job, because these were 11th and 12th graders. I'm like, it could be your
Mhm.
boss.
Oh,
Like,
exactly. Yeah.
people have a lot of narcissistic traits, and you don't realize until you're like, you know what, they're belittling you, and they're putting, they put themselves first, and they have such a high ego, and you're just like, but I'm doing the best I can, but nothing's ever good enough for them, So it's
Right.
like,
Right.
and you need to not have to prove your love, you know.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that just like, I was like, I'm beyond blessed to have been having this opportunity, and I'm like, I
Mhm.
gotta keep sharing this with kids, and I just
Absolutely.
that's my thing. I gotta get to other schools, and I'm like, watch me end up at Scottsdale Unified District where my son's at, and he's gonna be like, is that my mom?
Yes. Wow. Wow. Yeah. Yeah. Let's pause here for a second. I don't know if the thing is gonna cut off in 5 minutes or it
Okay.
was just letting me know I have 5 more minutes because I only had set this meeting for an hour.
Okay.
So let me see if there's something I could do for a second. Let me see if I can pause the recording. Oops.
Yeah, I think we just have one more question.